I made this pitch a couple of weeks ago, and I'm probably going to be repeating it a lot over the next 3 to 4 years. You're looking at a photograph of Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, of course, who's retired from the U.S. Army. Colonel West is a man who I believe has impeccable credentials. His service in 22 years in the Army was quite exemplary. At the end, there was a period where he was in some trouble because of some of his actions in Iraq, but he ended up saving the lives of countless members of his unit. And he ended up coming back home and spending a year in the U.S. or 2 years in the U.S. House of Representatives, got targeted by Democrats and big money and was removed, then left Florida, moved to Texas, where he now serves as the Republican national chairman. A friend of mine told me over the weekend, he said, my only problem with Colonel West is I want him to stay off that motorcycle. But I think that also speaks volumes about Colonel West. After being involved in a summertime motorcycle accident, which would have killed a great many people, he had skin grafts and surgeries to repair several broken bones. He was up and running again. That is, running for exercise within 6 weeks, which would tell you he was running through a great deal of pain. And even after all of his military service, 22 years and what he went through, he told an interviewer at the end of this ordeal that it was very difficult to get through all of this, and it might have been the most difficult thing that he has ever done. It shows you then the toughness of this human being. And I keep telling people, if not Donald Trump, who would you want leading Republicans? And someone will say, well, Josh Hawley from Missouri. A lot of Americans would say Josh who. Now, his profile will be raised over the next couple of years. Hawley is a good young Republican U.S. senator. He is not what you would call a neocon. He comes from what you might call the same cloth as Donald Trump comes from, and that is he believes in looking out for working people. I hear the name Tom Cotton mentioned. Veteran, seems to be a good all-around guy. But again, I don't know that he's all that charismatic. Every once in a while, someone will say, Nikki Haley. If there's the definition of a neocon, it's Nikki Haley. If you doubt me, let me give you a little history here. A couple of years back, I had some guy call my show and say, how come you don't like John Bolton? He's on Fox News a lot, and I like what he says. I said, because he's a neocon, and he's a very dangerous man. And the caller didn't like what I had to say, but within a couple of years after Bolton went to work in the White House and then began knifing his boss in the back after leaving, that very same caller and most people along those lines would go, oh, yeah, not a very nice guy at all. We have short memories, but there was a time during the run up to the war in Iraq when, if anybody questioned it, conservatives essentially wanted to throw you a beating. Yet many of those very same people turned around and joined the Tea Party and said we had wasted too much of our treasure fighting in Iraq. So after the fact, it became okay to question what was going on there. By the way, I'm still not one of those people who's going to denounce the invasion. I think that it could have been done better and other things could have been done better, but I think there were actually good reasons to do it. I'll get into those in another video at another time. You've got a number of people who will say, well, why don't we bring back Jeb Bush? You've got a lot of powerful Republicans who think they're going to bring back the Jeb Bush is like when you go into a restaurant, you know you shouldn't be eating the SOS. That is the biscuits and gravy. And someone would say, no, you'll be much better off eating the oatmeal. But you know what? I'm not looking for oatmeal on the rare occasions that I go out to eat. You've got a lot of people who were well named by the president. And low energy Jeb certainly happened to be one of those. Marco Rubio was another. I had friends in the Tea Party movement who were telling me how great Marco was way back in 2010. And then we discovered with a gang of 8 that he wasn't so great after all. Now he's trying to resurrect his image. But be wary of that little guy. Let me get back to Colonel West. Way back in 2010. And folks who are listening to a radio show I was hosting, some of those people may still be around and be listening to some of these videos or watching them. Remember that I started talking up Colonel West not long after he made a speech at Sunrise, Florida. You can find it on YouTube. It's called At the Revolution. It's 6 minutes. It's impromptu. He was asked to speak 3 minutes ahead of time because someone recognized him in the crowd, and he got up and he spoke. And I'll tell you what, it gave me goosebumps when I first heard it. It still does. This is a man who can walk into a room and command that room. Instantly, he draws attention. Now, some people are going to say, well, just because of the color of his skin, we're just trying to emulate what or Democrats have been doing for years with identity politics. Let me tell you something. You got a conservative black man who pulled himself up by the bootstraps, literally in the U.S. Army, led men in combat. Tell you what, do you think that that might have broad appeal? Because we do need some of those minority votes again. President Trump got better numbers than anyone had in a very long time as a Republican, but it appears it is not going to be enough to pull him across the finish line this time around. Speaking of which, just very quickly, President Trump gained voters in every demographic group but save one, and that was white men, where he was steady, which raises the question, then how did he lose? Again, we're not going to have answers to some of these questions perhaps for years to come, and then we can hold people to account. But in the meantime, I want you to consider Colonel West and his name recognition, and the man will take no baloney from anyone. Keep that in mind. That is his reputation. He is a tough guy. That was obviously evident after the motorcycle accident, if it was not yet evident beforehand. If you like our videos, please click on the listen live the subscribe button above. Listen live is for my own radio show, which, by the way, you can hear if you go online at newsradio1310.com. I'm on the air 6 until 10 a.m., Monday through Friday, Mountain Time, at News Radio 1310 KLIX, and I am in the Magic Valley of Idaho, which one of the most beautiful places in the world. You know, there are 33 waterfalls within about half an hour drive of where I'm actually sitting right now. Hope to talk to all of you again soon, and please consider my request when it comes to Colonel West.